First story is titled, Am I the a-hole for using my daughter's life kickstart money to pay for her child and refusing to give her any of her sisters to go to college? Long story short, the Hubs and I have two daughters, one aged 21, one aged 18. We put $80,000 away for both of them in a life kickstarting fund. Basically a college fund, but not in one of those college funds only accounts, in case college wasn't something they wanted to do, could be used for trade school, down payment on house, starting a business, etc. And when the oldest S13 would told them both, if they got pregnant before they left home, would be using their kickstart money to pay for the child so they could finish high school and not be SOL by having to drop out or something else bad. At 15, the older daughter got pregnant. We went after the father for child support, but his family doesn't have much. So the judge didn't award her and her son much. So we had to use her kickstart fund to pay for her pregnancy and my grandsons. Well, just being alive. By the time she got out of high school, it was very nearly depleted, so she just asked for the rest in cash to get an apartment when she moved out at 19. My other daughter started college this year, virtually of course, but still, using her Kickstart Life Fund money of course. I guess my older daughter thought we used all of both funds to pay for her and her child, because once she found out her sister still had some, she started demanding some, so she could go to college too. When we said no, she accused us of playing favorites, and has basically gone no contact since early October. Did we mess up? Were my husband and I a-holes here? Edit. Yes, she had access to protection and the pill. I can't prove if she used them, but she had access. Also offered termination a few times, and she said no. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Why should something she did negatively impact her younger sister? Her sister didn't get pregnant in high school. She did. She did so knowing that she would have struggles because of it. There is no reason her sister should have to pay for her child or her college. Exactly. Not the a-hole. You would be playing favorites if you gave her that money. Did she really expect you to give her all of that 160 grand for her having a baby? Your older daughter chose having a baby over college. Your younger daughter should not be punished for it. Not the a-hole. I honestly thought you were going somewhere else with this until the end. Of course, you don't have to take one daughter's money and give it to the other just because she got pregnant at 15. I'm in the same boat. My jaw dropped when I reached the last lines. This teen mom just automatically assumed her parents would give her all the money? How entitled. Not the a-hole. Her actions have consequences. Maybe, instead of letting her cash out to move out on her own, you should talk to her about a community college. It's a great way to get your gen ed credits knocked out and save some cash. It's silly of her to think that her getting pregnant at such a young age meant that she would receive the money set aside for her sister's future on top of what you had for her. We tried to push for community college a few years ago, but she said no. Now for the next story. Am I the a-hole for demanding that my husband talk to a therapist and/or take parenting classes after he typed the word boundaries like boundaries? In case anyone isn't fluent in internet slang, the weird random capitalization means to read it in a whiny voice. My husband and I have been having some problems in regards to how he parents our 8-year-old son. My husband likes to play rough, tickling, wrestling, poking at someone after being told to stop, and my son is a quiet, introverted kid who hates that type of play. My husband also likes to do little pranks, mostly popping out and scaring people, but our son has asked him to stop. He also doesn't respect our son's limits in terms of social interaction. When we visit my in-laws, the house is very loud, the other kids play too hard, and our son does not enjoy it. He is asked to bring a Switch and play upstairs. My husband said his mom would freak out over how rude that was, so I tried to compromise on a book. My husband said no, and that it is his job to put him in uncomfortable decisions so he can grow. I think it hurts his feelings that our son doesn't like his grandparents, but I find them very difficult to like, so I can't blame him. My in-laws have complained, not in front of him, that our son is too weak and wimpy, and we are ruining him. I texted my husband the other day that I want to talk about our differences in parenting because I am not okay with him continuing to disregard boundaries. He replied that he has been depressed lately because of how joyless me and our son are, and he wrote back, but find we can talk about boundaries. I said that he sounds just like his crappy parents, and I am not okay with that. I said he needs to talk to a therapist because I can't make him see how important boundaries are, or maybe take parenting classes. Now he is really mad at me and feels like I am saying he is totally horrible and the worst father. Edit. A lot of people seem to think that this is toxic masculinity, but I'm not sure because my husband and his 3 sisters were raised like this, and my mother-in-law is the most vocal about disliking serious and sensitive people, so I do think he would be the same if we had a daughter. Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. It sounds like the straw that broke the camel's back, and he does need to learn boundaries if his 8-year-old son has repeatedly asked him to stop pranking him, and your husband, 1, refuses to stop harassing his child, and 2, is now whining about how he's depressed because he isn't allowed to harass his child. His joy in life should not come from tormenting his son. He also needs to realize that respecting his child's boundaries will result in his child being raised to respect other people's boundaries, which is a win-win for society. Not the a-hole. He is being a horrible father. If the only way he can find joy in parenting is by making his child uncomfortable for his own amusement, or even out of some misguided sense that demanding the kid tough it out in purely optional, supposedly fun social situations where no one's prepared to make even the slightest accommodation for him builds character. Stand your ground. This can't continue. And if he keeps digging in his heels, go to counseling yourself to figure out what your next steps are. Because if things don't change, not only will your son have nothing to do with dad as soon as he's old enough, he may well blame you for not doing enough to protect him. He sounds like the sort of guy who has found he can get away with anything, no matter how destructive, if he frames it as a practical joke. C.S. Lewis. And is thus the sort of person no one wants to be around. Not the a-hole. Your husband is bullying your kid, refusing to admit that, putting the blame on you and your son, and ridiculing you too for it. So yes, he is horrible and a bad father. Yep, and I take it one step farther. He's being a horrible husband for putting his parents' ideals over his wife's genuine outreach. The next story is titled, Am I the a-hole? I said, not my problem, to my ex's mom when she implied he is dying. My ex and I broke up 3 years ago. To be honest, the severance of the relationship wasn't amicable. We tried communicating a few months after, because they said that's what adults do, but I realized he wasn't in a good place, so I went no contact from then on. He was diagnosed with a brain tumor, so everyone, his friends and family mostly, thought the breakup wouldn't push through. Kinda how some make a baby to save the marriage, I suppose. But there were just so many underlying issues in our relationship that a sympathy over a tumor can't fix. So yes, 3 years ago, I'm the a-hole because at the height of the surgery, the post-surgery treatment, and the therapy, I still broke up with him. I'm the a-hole because I didn't want my life saddled with the biggest man-child I ever met. Tumor aside, this was one of my chief issues with him. So fast forward to today, I received a message from his mother. It started with the usual "How are yous and how's everyone?" Then came the request. Since we're still friends on Facebook, she kept seeing all my posts about the traveling, the motorcycle rides, the quaint restos, the art workshops, basically me just having a life. The mother is asking if I'd be so kind as to bring his son, my ex, along with these adventures because she fears he hasn't long to live and that she wants his son's life to have some color again. This won't fly because A, I have a fiancé. I'm pretty sure the idea won't sit well with him, that there will now be a third person in our little adventures. B, just thinking of the setup that I have to pick up my ex, bring him along, pay for his food, then take him back to his place is a nightmare that I don't want to revisit. So I told his mother, sorry, but no, and just stated reason A, and that I wanted to respect my fiancé. The mother tried insisting, and even asked if I didn't care for son has become an invalid and can't do much. He now walks with a cane and apparently needs help constantly. So for the third time in this post, I might be the a-hole because I gave another firm no. Told her it wasn't my obligation, nor my problem, to fulfill anything that's lacking in his son's life. Now I'm getting messages from his family, how I'm such a selfish witch that couldn't spare a bit for a dying person. Am I the a-hole? Edit 1. Okay, wow, I am overwhelmed with all of your responses. Thank you very much. Since many of you are asking about why I was even asked by the mom, when we were still together, I usually paid for things because of the disparity in our income. I'm really awkward about money, and my dad used to tell me that I have to be understanding with matters like that. Example on dinner dates. I can't expect a person to go Dutch when they obviously can't afford their half. I guess he and his family got used to the idea too much. And yes, maybe I let them at some point. I resented the fact that they seemed to have a thing for fancy stuff. Like the mom was asking for an insanely expensive bag for her birthday, one that I never even dreamed of owning. I said no to that, by the way. To summarize, perhaps because I have, and shown, the capacity to provide, and also the means to move, he would always want that I drive him around, pick him up from his house, and when the date's over, drop him off. I can only assume they don't have anyone within their circle who can provide such convenience. Edit 2. I'm not really 100% sure if he's already dying since the mom has a flair for the dramatic. Now for the top comments. Not an a-hole. His own mom and family can take him on these adventures if she's so concerned about it. Exactly. You shouldn't feel bad for living your own life and moving on from your ex. His mother and all the family could divide costs so they can take him on these types of trips. It isn't up to you to do that. Not an a-hole. Y'all broke up. You moved on with your life. You don't owe them anything, and it would be weird if he was there. The mom is the a-hole for trying to guilt trip you. It's a lot of money and time to do those kinds of trips. For her to expect you to be okay with it is kind of crazy. She could always take him out. Does he not have any other friends to do stuff with? Family? It's not your responsibility to make sure he lives his life. I think it's because they know I'm financially more capable than them. When we were still together, I was the one who usually paid for dinners, movies, out-of-the-country trips, etc. I also had to drive him around then since he didn't have a car and disliked public transportation. I think that's what the mom is missing since they can't do those things themselves. But yes, you are right. It takes a lot of money and time. In fact, we used to fight a lot about it. I hated the pressure they gave me then, just because I made a lot more. Not an a-hole. His misfortune is not your responsibility. You've moved on with your life, and he and his family obviously couldn't get over that. Sure, that really sucks for him and his family, but like you said, it's really not your problem. Info. How long were you all together? 3 years. Then a few months after that was sort of ambiguous because of the tumor news. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to help out my newly pregnant sister? My sister is 18, I am 29 female. She recently just found out she is pregnant and is panicking pretty hard right now. She thinks it's going to destroy her life, but has pretty strong beliefs against contraceptives and termination. Anyways, so she is 7 weeks pregnant and still lives at home with our extremely toxic mother and her equally as toxic father. She calls me for the first time in months to tell me this and then goes on to ask if she can move in with me and my family. I have a family of 4 and a home that just barely fits all of us. Originally, I told her that it would be fine, but I had stipulations. Like you have to get a job and earn your keep, and we would also have to upgrade our home in order to accommodate her and her unborn child. She flat out told me that she wouldn't get a job because she doesn't like people and being in public setting make her anxious. I told her there are programs that will not only help financially until she got on her feet, but also help her find a job to better fit her needs. She instantly shot the idea down and said that she didn't want to be seen as a charity case and that being on state help would just make her look like a loser. Instead, she suggested that her boyfriend move in as well and work part-time so that she could have help with a baby. She states that anything over part-time would mean that she would have no help, and that isn't an option to her. Keep in mind that this entitled attitude is stemmed directly from our mom and her dad. She never used to be like this, but it seems as though the second she turned 16, a switch flipped and she started following their path of ignorance. I've tried steering her in the right direction with no luck. Admittedly, it is probably due to the fact that my life is far too chaotic to give her the one-on-one that she needs. She has learning disabilities as well as abandonment and trust issues. So after she tells me this, I told her that we wouldn't be able to help her. That her boyfriend moving in would mean 3 extra mouths to feed, and realistically, a part-time job wouldn't even begin to cover the added expense of upgrading to a bigger home to accommodate her. She immediately started saying that I was selfish, just like our mother, and that I never cared about her like I claimed I did. She is now trying to guilt me by saying that she is basically going to end up homeless because apparently our mother threatened to kick her out unless she signs over rights of her baby to my mother, who desperately wants another child. Am I the a-hole for sticking to my guns and saying no unless her or her boyfriend get a full-time job instead of a part-time? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. Also, WTF. If a baby is going to ruin your life and you're against contraceptives and termination, don't have intercourse. She's screwing up her life, not a baby. And that baby is going to be screwed as well. She should just terminate or commit to giving it up for adoption. I told her the same thing. I even asked why she didn't take the morning after pill, and her response was, that's the same thing as termination. She has a half-fat, backwards way of thinking. Not the a-hole. Why can't she go move in with her boyfriend if she wants him to support her like that? She could also get a job in childcare herself. Not much interaction with adults. If she can't handle that, she probably can't handle a baby then. I asked her that, and apparently where he still lives at home with his parents, it's not an option. God, no, not the a-hole. Saying no is the best thing you could have done here. She thinks it's going to destroy her life but has pretty strong beliefs against contraceptives and termination. Too bad she doesn't have such strong feelings about the consequences of copulation. She is being belligerently ignorant at every level. She's got all sorts of entitled opinions and demands, and if you let her and her boyfriend move in, it would be an absolute disaster, and I could see this destroying your marriage. She made a big girl decision to have unprotected action. Let her deal with the big girl consequences. Nothing you do is going to change her attitude or make her less lazy and entitled. She is not your responsibility. And that's the end of this video, folks. As always, leave a comment and hit like and subscribe. And if you want more of this content, turn your notification on to get updated on the latest videos. And I'll catch you with the next one. Stay safe.